In a sample study of out of 8,000 fetuses, 7,999 were found to be female. They were all aborted. According to Times of India report in 1982 June, 4 years after the introduction of sex detention tests in our country, 78,000 female fetuses were aborted. In China, the same problem exists. Even they consider the boys or the sons to have a better position than the daughters in their family because of the Confucian traditions. Moreover, the one-child policy that was imposed in China led to the escalation of this problem in China because everyone wanted their only child to be a male child. In September 1997, the World Health Organization's Regional Committee for the Western Pacific issued a report claiming that more than 50 million women were estimated to be missing in China because of the institutionalized killing and neglect of girls due to Beijing's population control program that limits parents to one child. So the heinous methods how female feticide or infanticide is done. Just we'll look into it. A girl child is killed by putting a sandbag on her face or by throttling her. Some people turn to dais, traditional midwives, who offer female deselection by killing the newborn girls by giving them a sharp jerk, that is turning them upside down, and by snapping their spinal cords and declaring them as stillborn. They are fed with dry, unhulled rice, which puncture their windpipes, and they die. And in one case where, in Tamil Nadu, John Dahlberg says, Lakshmi refused to nurse her newborn baby for 3 days, and later, to silence the baby, she fed it with a poisonous milky sap. The child bled through his nose and died. The statistics is that the sex ratios have been steadily plunging from 796 girls for every 1,000 boys in 1961 to 927 girls born to 1,000 boys in 2001. And according to British medical journal The Lancet, in 2006, as many as 10 million female fetuses were aborted in over India in the past 20 years. In some small towns such as Fatehgarh Sahib in Punjab, 2001 census revealed that the female to male ratio has declined to dismal 754. And notably, it is said that by 2020, there will be about 35 million surplus males in China and 25 million surplus males in India. What are the social effects of such an imbalance? The adverse sex ratio is bound to destabilize the society. First of all, a small pool of marriageable women may lead to increased problem of prostitution and could force many girls to cut short their education. Dowry will slowly give way to bride purchase, and it is not unheard of at present. And it is also beginning to have an effect on the traditional concepts of family. The growing instances of polyamorous unions are most reported in Punjab, where there is a shortage of women, and it's the highest in India there. The woman is purchased from poor regions or lower castes and is forced to be wife not only to her husband, but also to his brothers, and even according to some reports to her own father-in-law. There are laws for every problem in India, but the effort seems to end just there, and the illegal activities thrive right below the nose of the law. Prenatal sex determination is an act forbidden in India by the Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, and there is a recent proposal to make it more stringent by enhancing the fine and also the term of imprisonment for any contravention of the act. Likewise, abortion is also regulated by the MTP Act of 1971, and in that the fetus is a female is no legal ground for abortion. But despite the laws, it's always easy to find medical practitioners who are ready to compromise their professional ethics for a pretty sum. Therefore, the problem still persists. To conclude, the deep-rooted prejudices against the womankind and the discriminatory status accorded to her in India don't fade away even in the 21st century, and men have always taken the lion's share in the bounties of progress. The solution to gendercide is only through education, which can engender the ideal of equality of man and woman, without which legislative efforts are bound to fail. Let me quote the words of Vijayalakshmi Pandit. She said, "There can be no civilization in which man and woman are equal partners. There can be no nation which has not been built up by their joint efforts. There can be no unity for which both man and woman have not worked and planned together. And there can be no freedom unless man and woman marched forward together and achieve it." And Kofi Annan made a very good observation in his preface to the Human Rights Today, a United Nations priority. He said, A culture of human rights can be ours, but words will not suffice. We need deeds that will bring to life for every individual, every community, the aspirations articulated by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This challenge requires a sustained individual and collective effort. In short, a global partnership for human rights. Thank you.